a qualified physio and director of Recovery and Beyond situated in Cardiff. He has worked with elite international and professional athletes at 2 Commonwealth Games. He was the head physio for Hockey Wales, Celtic Crusaders, Welsh Rugby League, and he's also worked with the Welsh Institute of Sport. Sheree competed for 13 years in Olympic rifle for England. She competed in the 2008, 2010 and 2014 Commonwealth Games. She now specialises in sports massage as the director of Podium Therapies in Whitchurch, Cardiff. She's massaged for the WRU Six Nations rugby team, Cardiff Devils ice hockey team and in the Commonwealth Games.
So hello everyone and welcome to, this is episode 8 of the Fitness Network podcast. Myself and Matt are today joined by Sheree and Osian. So if you guys want to give us a little intro on yourselves.
Far away, Osian.
Go on. I'm Osian, I'm a physiotherapist based in Cardiff. I've been qualified for 20 years, worked in NHS, private practice, private hospitals, professional sports, international sport. I'm still going. So that's about it really for me.
Okay, hi, I'm Sheree. I have been working as a sports massage therapist for 5 years, a little bit behind Osian. And I've worked with elite athletes to gym goers to a bit of everyone. Worked with a couple of different teams. Yeah, love massage.
Cool, super. So how did you both get into your job? Like what qualifications did you need to do it?
So I went straight from school to university, did a 3-year degree course in physiotherapy, and essentially qualified as a physiotherapist then. But the kind of real work kind of starts once you finish your basic training.
Yeah.
That's when you start consolidating and learning and really kind of doing useful things. So it's it's been an ongoing process since then, really. Yeah.
Forever learning.
Yeah.
So my path in was a little bit different. Didn't kind of grow up knowing I was going to uni or becoming a massage therapist at all. My background is being an athlete in sport. So when I retired from international sport, I then, I saw Osian and his team whilst having treatment with him, and then went back to uni after the Glasgow Games, or back to an outside massage school. So it's slightly different to a physio's route of university. So yeah, it's a 1-year intense course for my level 4. Numerous CPD courses in between, and then 4 years later went and did my level 5 in St Mary's University in Twickenham. So yeah.
Ooh, cool.
So how long would these typical sort of courses, how long would you need to train for? Is it just like a basic standard, then you can advance into different areas of the field?
In terms of physiotherapy, it's the general qualifications, which is 3 years. Beyond that, then yes, that you kind of specialise in a certain field. If you want to, you can kind of keep going doing rotational kind of work and covering all the fields. But essentially, you specialise within that field. There's no other qualifications. There are things that you can do, but there's nothing that you have to do. There's all sorts of different postgraduate things that you can do to support that, but there's not a formal kind of recognised further steps that you have to take. But it's ongoing basically. Yeah.
So a little bit similar, but a little bit less. So my level 4, I went straight in at level 4 instead of doing my level 3 first, which was quite educational jump, given that I hated science and biology and that in school. That was a year, and then my level 5 was a year course as well. A bit similar, you get your sports massage diploma, and then you can specialise in different things, but that is your base level. Like physio, you have to do your CPD each year, and I've done various different courses to add on to sports massage as well. So keeping it all around the theme of fixing people.
Yeah. Okay, and you both own your own businesses. So what would you say that you enjoy most about running them, and the things that you least enjoy?
I think for me, it's the kind of it's the team. You know, I've been there for 15 years now, and so you know we've built up a good practice, a good reputation, and practitioners who've been there for a few years, and that makes the whole thing quite enjoyable. Yeah, and seeing people achieve their goals, and kind of you get to meet a lot of different people from different walks of life, and by and large get lots of good positive feedback. So it's good for the ego in that sense. In terms of what do I hate, like probably a lot of other people, paperwork. It's essential. It's got to be done. But yeah, that's my kryptonite.
Yeah, definite kryptonite is writing up patient notes. For me, and I'm sure you as well, Osian, is laundry. The amount of towels and paper towels that we go through, yeah, I could do without that.
Yeah.
But the thing that I love, I mean, maybe one of your team could do yours. But
yeah.
So it's just me, my business. I'd love to have a team. I worked out, I've been seeing one of Osian's massage therapists for 13 years now. Steve, good guy. And I kind of realised, oh wow, like seeing his walk of life in a team, that is something I would love to have, that bouncing ideas and stuff like that. But then by having your own business, you've got the freedom of the way you can treat people, and you can work late or work early and have a weekend off if you want a weekend off. And the biggest thing I love is, like Osian said, seeing people's joy when they've achieved a goal, or they've gotten better and they've competed somewhere, or even if you just helped them narrow down a niggle that has actually become a big problem, and now they can pick up their kids or check their blind spot in the car. It's a very rewarding job. Like, and yeah, it boosts your ego. It makes you happy that you've helped someone. So.
Yeah, you get that. Cool.
Is it my go now? Sorry. So what would you say is the most important thing to do well in any sport, athletics? Would you say is genetics, work ethic?
I mean, that's like $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's like writing a book kind of question, really. I think from my perspective, I think it's kind of, it depends specifically on what sport, I suppose, in terms of how closed the sport it is. Like for example, Sheree with the kind of shooting and stuff like that. It's very individual, very kind of focused on what you're doing, or how open it is. Like a team sport. So I think there's quite different kind of characteristics for those kind of things. You definitely need a work ethic. There's no one reaches the top at anything without a work ethic. But having said that, being able to do more work doesn't necessarily guarantee that success either. So it's kind of being clever with it, which I suppose kind of comes down to the genetics, the environment. Genetics definitely plays a part, but for me, the biggest thing that I would see in my time is the mindset. You've got to be kind of willing to learn from mistakes, and kind of always look forwards. I think the problem some athletes and people have is quite often they're kind of they're achieving quite highly at a young age, or up to a certain level in their careers. But then when the going gets a bit tougher, that's when kind of things start to kind of fall apart for a lot of people. But it's how you at some stage, it's how you kind of deal with that. That's kind of what kind of gets you to the top, I think.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. It takes a certain person to keep the blinkers on from starting up a sport to getting a gold or reaching whatever the highest point is. I used to live by a motto: fail to prepare, prepare to fail. So if you're not willing to put the effort in, don't expect to get the rewards out. Genetics, definitely, especially like athletics. If your muscles are more fast twitching, then you're going to have a little bit of an advantage. A brilliant example is Semenya from South Africa, the runner. But then I think a certain amount of it's a fine line between trying too hard and overtraining and just thinking work, when actually you need the balance of the work and the rest and the recovery side of things. So the physio, the massage and the rehab work is just as important. So it is a lot of mental structure behind any athlete that will put them in good stead, whether they're naturally talented or not. There will be that, okay, my natural talent's got me so far, and like Osian said, in my sport I see quite a lot of drop off after junior level. So when you go from juniors to seniors, is the kind of cutthroat of, have you got it in yourself to like carry on building on?
Yeah,
it's a bit of everything.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that. I think I'd say I'd seen some amazing, very, very young bodybuilders which have managed to put on this, I mean, ridiculous amounts of muscle for a certain age, but I don't think then they've probably pushed for really, really hard, and then they kind of, because they were so young, they weren't ready for it. And then I noticed that they've done amazing at juniors, and you would expect them to turn pro, and then they kind of don't really. And I don't know whether it's partly, maybe their body catches up with them and they just need the rest and they need the time for everything to grow, like mentally and physically. I don't know.
Yeah. There's an interesting book out at the moment. It's called Range, and it's about kind of generalization versus specialization. And the introduction to that book compares Tiger Woods to Roger Federer. And Tiger Woods could swim a golf club when he was 3, specialised, in being a kind of golf superstar from 5 onwards. Wow. And Roger Federer wanted to be a footballer until he was 14, and played tennis, but his mother was a coach, said he didn't have the right attitude for it. He didn't actually start playing competitively until his later teens. Later, down the end of the road, Roger Federer is kind of still going, possibly still improving, still getting better, and kind of Tiger Woods has had a lot of problems, So I think that's kind of that book is really insightful in that kind of thing, and it's that specialization too early that author would argue is not a good thing. You should definitely be sampling different things. From a physical perspective, doing lots of different things gives you a really solid base, a wide base for whatever you want to do. So if you specialize in one thing, especially if it's very specific, then you're kind of losing out on a lot of other things which you need in your toolbox for later life, really.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, kind of going into that, as a kind of athlete, I know this is a very, very broad scale when I say athlete. I mean, I don't know if I count a dart player as an athlete, but what would you say? How regularly do you think an athlete should go for massage physio work, and then how would you compare that to somebody who's kind of an average, gym goer?
From my perspective, I think it's completely individual. I think it depends what your goals are from in terms of overall what you're aiming to achieve from it. I think from my experience, when you're attached to like a professional club, for example, you might see the same people 6 days a week for 10 months of the year, and some of them you might not see it, 5-6 times. You know, it's very individual, but it purely depends on what you're trying to achieve. I think from my perspective, I've got people who check in with me maybe once a month, maybe kind of just as and when, or just by text or by email. People come in every week. It all depends on what issues physically they have, what the demands are. But more than often than not, my kind of specialty is probably when people are struggling with issues that they can't shake. So we kind of tend to probably see people more intensely for short periods of time. I don't tend to spend as much of my time on kind of maintenance, kind of ongoing. Probably more Sheree's probably more accustomed to that kind of role. But I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, in my background, I'd see a physio when I was broken or trying to train up to something. So if I knew I had a particular weakness that I needed to work on to get to a certain goal, or if I was injured, that's where my physio days would come, which is what started just before the Delhi Commonwealth Games. Rushed into Osian's clinic and was like, "Oh, fix me!" But then for massage, I see trying to split the categories to an everyday gym goer to an elite athlete. It is an individual thing, and sometimes it becomes a mental thing that people want just to come in and have a massage because mentally they know someone has physically told them you are okay to compete. Quite often in elite sports, the physio has the power to kind of step in and be like, I've got to tell the coach that you're not at the top of the game. Whereas massage, you haven't really got that authority. You are there to kind of either flush them out, or it becomes quite important what you say to your client, because mentally they could just be looking for a friend to sound some like, is my body okay?
Yeah.
So you would see people weekly sometimes, and then you sometimes see people months and months and months go apart. They come to you, they think, oh, I need a quick fix. I might see them a couple of times and then go, actually, do you know what, something's niggling here behind the scenes, go and see a physio. So it is individual. There's no textbook answer of have massage every other week. I do recommend sometimes, like if, especially like a runner that's going to be impacting their body quite often on outside on the hard roads, come for a leg flush out once a month or something, if you just want to keep your legs at their peak. It becomes about preventative then, not fixing. So preventative is always better.
I think especially as you mentioned there, when your training intensity raises, you need to be able to train essentially before you feel well enough to train again, or not well enough, but kind of happy enough to train again. Then getting closer to kind of marathons or events or heavy training blocks, especially. But I think the really important thing with Sheree and other guys which work with us is a kind of is a surveillance, is a kind of just just checking things over, and kind of it's kind of really useful for that kind of, because you know how things should feel. You feel better, you kind of become more body aware, and that makes our job much easier.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think sometimes a massage is needed for a mental kind of getaway as well. I feel like
I'm overdue for a massage
as well. With if they're looking just to come back down, or like intermediate massage. So if they've just come off like the what's the word, like your qualification round, they just want to be brought back down. It's almost not a massage, it's more therapeutic of them just coming back down, and then you're working them back up to then start in the finals and stuff like that. So it can be used like in an event as well as before and after an event.
Okay.
So would you say, I'd say the average gym goer or an elite athlete, let's say go once every 2 weeks or every fortnight just to help prevent injury, or there might be something niggling there? Because like myself, you know, doing shows and stuff. I'm not doing it anymore, not as a pro level, but for me, going once a month just to find if there's anything wrong or just to help prevent any injuries in the future. So what would you recommend to something like I'd say the average gym goer, but enjoys going to the gym and he's got nothing else to do? So if he gets injured, he hasn't got the gym to go to anymore. So would you recommend someone who does that to say, yeah, go once a month just to get yourself that release?
Yeah, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think you've got to just try it out. You know, you've got to try it out. A one-off massage isn't going to tell you much. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of you kind of, it's about kind of knowing how you want to feel, how you think you should feel, and then if you kind of, for example, we kind of recommend if someone wants to start massage for the first time before the marathon, it's not kind of come once the night before. That's you're not going to get much from it.
I have had clients
all the time. You need to kind of a while before, so you can have one or two at least, so you can kind of judge what you're going to get from it, what you're trying to achieve from it, and then you put that into your plan. You know, it's the same for the average gym goer. Some people like to schedule things in, and maybe kind of like every 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks or whatever, is a good thing to kind of say, kind of you're checking in, as it were. You know, and it's a mental thing, largely, like Sheree mentioned. You know, not just physically, but it's kind of tuning your body awareness and your awareness of where you are into what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, everyone's got their own plan. No body is textbook anymore, and no one can really ever become textbook anymore with technological advances and the way we sit at a desk each day. You might be an elite athlete but still working a 9 to 5 job, whereas your competitor might just be a full-time athlete. So I mean, it's like you go to the dentist twice a year, every 6 months. Why do you do that with your teeth, and why would you not do that with your full structure? And it is true, I have had a client come in a long time ago, and he said, I'm running the marathon. I said, oh right, what, in 3 weeks time? I'm thinking his physique did not look like a runner. And he said, yeah, the one in 3 weeks time. I said, well, how's your training going? What have you come to me for just a flush out? Have you had massage before? And he went, oh, just an MOT, see if I'm fit enough to run. And I was like, you are in the wrong place. But my advice would be not to run. And he said, well, I want a training plan. And I said, that's A, not my job. B, you're 3 weeks out from the London Marathon, so I don't know how he got a place. I didn't see him again.
Oh,
but
so you don't know if he made it or not?
I have no idea. But it is, you've got to know your body, and a lot of people don't know their body until they get an injury and they seek out treatment. But if you are putting your muscles and your body through an intense thing in the gym or an athlete's training regime, you will have an idea of what's pain and what's an ache and what's a niggle to an injury. And it's noticing when that starts, tackling it there and then, instead of letting the niggle become a pain and then you needing a blocker treatment, as opposed to just eking it out in your training plan.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because I think a lot of people, or a lot of bodybuilders particularly, seem to think that if they get delayed muscle onset soreness, that it's a good thing and that they're building lots of muscle and that's why they're sore. But it's not always the case, is it? And I think that kind of knowing when you are too sore and that's not normal for your body, or when you think, okay, you know what, I am run down, I am in a calorie deficit or something like that, it's not surprising that my body would feel this way. And I just need to push through it today, or I need to take a rest day, and that's enough.
Yeah.
Oh, I've lost your. Yeah. Cool.
So myself and Rosie come from like a bodybuilding background. Would you recommend any different types of stretching or warm-ups before and after training to that specific sport, or is it just a normal standard thing for any athlete to do? I'm saying this because you find a lot of guys have always got rotator cuff injuries from the gym due to lifting too heavy bench press or shoulder press. Yeah, exactly. I'm guilty of it. I've had it, and it took me like 6 months to recover, if not longer. It's an absolutely awful injury, rotator cuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I mean, are you thinking that if you should stretch before you train in the gym, and that would help, or so probably not. Definitely not. It won't have any difference. Stretching before exercise, before competition, doesn't really have any beneficial effects. Probably does. Some people would argue it has a negative effect. Reality is we probably don't really spend enough time before doing things for it to have that negative effect. So personally, I don't mind it too much. You won't get much from it. It's all about being strong enough. In terms of for weight training, in terms of bodybuilding, you need to have the range of movement to do to be able to do things well. Whether that means you've got to do some mobility or flexibility things, that may well be the case, but that doesn't mean you stretch before you exercise. What you need to do before you exercise is make sure you're warmed up, and make sure you can go through all the joint ranges that you need to go, and that your kind of your muscles are well activated and ready to do the job. So if you injure your cuff, it's because your cuff's not coping with what's going on. Nothing to do with stretching. Afterwards, stretching doesn't really help any soreness. I think it saves time. Depends how much time you've got. If you're a full-time athlete, you can do your flexibility and stretching as well as train a few hours a day. If you haven't got that time, then quite often it's probably a reasonable time to fit in your kind of any stretching that you want to do after you exercise, purely because you're warmed up and you're in your kit. But essentially, I would it's about kind of having the right range of movement, the right mobility, not stretching.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would agree. I mean, stretching makes my job easier as a massage therapist because your muscles might be a bit looser. But yeah, and it's something that I've learned post my sporting career is that my career was shooting, so it was a static position to hold, very much like your bikini poses. Yours are quite quick poses, but it's a static thing. And I would go through and do a head to toe stretch routine, and no one ever told me any different. That was what we did. And yet no one in any of the other countries, you'd never see them do it. But we were kind of brought up as, oh, you've got to stretch your arms, stretch your legs, stretch your back. When actually we're a static sport. We need to be strong. You might afterwards, because we've stood for a long time, you might want to have a little bit of a stretch and a move about, but that's more for the mental release as well as the physical release. Whereas actually doing a walk around the block, just getting your blood pumping to all your muscles to then be fueled muscles to hold you in those positions, would have worked better. And it's something from being a massage therapist now, I wish I'd learned sooner in my career, is that when you see people doing all these stretches and that before a run, or even neighbours just going out and doing a full body stretch, you could almost give yourself more of an injury if one leg is slightly looser than the other, if one muscle is tighter than the other. Your body isn't going to be working in a symmetrical way for something that you might want to do. So it is individual, but totally agree with what Osian's saying. It's about working everything up to your performance level, making sure you've got all that range. Normally stretching, you might want to be trying to improve your flexibility, so that would fall back into your training as opposed to a pre or post competition or workout. If that all makes sense.
Yeah. So quickly, we are running out of time. We've just got over 5 minutes. So before we go to the quick fire round, I want to ask you guys, if people want to come to you guys for physio or massage, how do they get hold of you, and where are you based?
My practice is in Cardiff, North Cardiff. It's Recovery and Beyond Physiotherapy. So it's recoveryandbeyond.co.uk. We are on Facebook. Just check us out on the website, basically.
Yeah, likewise, I'm in Cardiff. I'm based in Whitchurch. Podium Therapies, sports massage. I do other massage, but my specialty is sports. You don't have to be sporty to have a sports massage. On Facebook and Instagram as well. So podiumtherapies.co.uk, or find us on Facebook.
Cool, thank you. Matt, do you want to hit it with a quick fire?
Quick fire. Okay then. So quick fire round to both of you. Favorite guilty pleasure food?
Battenberg.
Really? Mine's chocolate mousse.
Okay. Hidden talent or party trick?
Yeah, there's no. I was going to say the party trick one's thrown me. I was going to say hidden talents. I've got plenty of talents, but they're not hidden. Yeah, sorry.
Love it.
So I was up for most of last night trying to think of a hidden talent, and the only thing I can come up with is I can dislocate my thumb. That is
Oh, like as in that thing. Is that?
so? Yeah.
Oh.
Which is probably turning Osian's stomach right now.
Yeah. Plenty of those.
Okay. Third quick fire question. Favorite place you've been in the world?
New Zealand.
Oh.
Well, yes. Now I'd say New Zealand and Australia for nature, but India for the people.
I love New Zealand. It's kind of home away from home. It feels comfortable. An amazing place. But I also love Switzerland. But Switzerland feels kind of like a holiday destination. It feels very different. Whereas New Zealand feels actually,
it's like Wales.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's the Brecon Beacons on steroids.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, with slightly more sheep and less people, I'd say.
Yeah.
Depends which part of Wales we're talking about.
Okay, finally, what is your favourite sport or your favourite athlete of all time?
I love Michael Jordan. You know, there was a recent Netflix documentary on it. It kind of reminded me because I'm that kind of age. So he was around when I was younger. But looking back at that documentary, it's quite amazing what he kind of achieved in those days. When you look at the science support available now and the technology and the knowledge wasn't kind of there at the time. It's amazing, really.
Yeah.
So my favourite sport happens to be my own sport, which is rifle shooting. But favourite athlete is probably Paula Radcliffe. She had quite a few different health concerns going into running, and she was willing to take a pee on the side of a road in front of a lot of people to continue her sport. So that takes a lot of bravery.
Yeah, I mean, when you got to run that far, I suppose you just got to let it go.
Gotta go.
Oh, well, thank you both very much for coming on. It's really interesting from an athlete's point of view to hear what you guys say, because obviously everyone's different. Like my coach will say go for a massage every week or every 2 weeks, but it's interesting. But from a kind of science background and everything, it's interesting.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us on.
Thank you very much, guys. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.